sisters, welcome to Penn Sunday School starring Penn Jillette. My name is Michael Rowe, Matt and I, and Penn, well, we're off doing something else, but the show's still broadcasting from Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas. This week, we're running the second part of Penn's discussion with Lawrence Krauss from his fantastic podcast Origins. It's a great conversation ranging from disappointing your parents to climate change. That Krauss guy knows stuff. Here he is preaching love, Mr. Penn Jillette.
It's interesting when you talked about the fact that, you know, the Kreskin thing you kept, you know, you did immaculate record keeping and everything else. I know that you're a compulsive record.
I do.
Yeah, but you're also, you're dedicated. You continue to do things. And that's why it surprises me that because I'm kind of a dilettante in a lot of things, and the discipline that's required at this time in my life to learn another language, I keep wanting to, but I think you have the discipline.
Boy, it's just, I just go, boy, it's all such a long road. And then I was in China, you know, and there I was, people were speaking to me in English who had been studying English for a long while, and they were struggling so, and I went, boy, these guys have been working really, really hard, and it's not fun to talk to them, and I'm going to be there for so long. And meanwhile, English is winning. I happened to luck out on that one.
Yeah, we did.
But it's like a rock in my shoe. Like learning to play an instrument well and read music was a rock in my shoe. I got that out of my shoe.
That's amazing because
all I've got is just. And, you know, my friend Tim Jennison of Tim's Vermeer, you know, he says, you know, they say one man, one language, one language, one man, two languages, two men. He said, you learn another language, you think different.
Yeah, you do.
Think better.
Yeah, I don't know whether I think better, but when I got to the point of speaking French where I could make jokes in French, which is the hardest thing, but I was still a different person when I was at a party.
And you can say shoehorn and Brussels sprouts?
Who? What?
Shoehorn and Brussels sprouts. Can you say those in French?
French? No.
A friend of mine who spoke 8 languages says that was his definition of fluent.
Oh, okay.
Shoehorn and Brussels sprouts.
Never needed to use either. Okay.
Didn't say you needed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But I got the language. But for me, it's that the same thing as music. We talked about that. I've played miserably a whole bunch of. I just wish I could just play one instrument well.
Yeah. There's moments. They're very rare for me still when I actually feel like I'm playing jazz.
Oh, wow.
And it's unbelievable. It's just, wow. I just, you just kind of flow into it, and it's great.
Well, I'm glad you have that. I'm glad you have.
It's
but
good.
Now, you know, I want to go back to that 12-year-old boy because you had the makings, and you still do, in many ways, of a good scientist. I mean, and I know you're fascinated by something, but it's not just this. The immaculate record keeping, the precision would have made you a great experimental physicist.
I will tell you, in taking in that inventory, and I really did this. I mean, I guess I seem so conniving, but you know, I was in a dead factory town.
Yeah,
I was surrounded by fellow children who went to prison or worked in factories. People did not do well in my town.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not painting it in Appalachia
sure.
as its worst, but it was not a town where everybody was getting out and going great. And I was really interested in science, and I said, you know, guys who are really good at science, they do 3-digit multiplication in their head. They do really smart stuff. I know I'm fairly smart. I'm not smart enough. If I go into science, I'm sure I can get the coffee, and I can back up the records, and I can keep the tables, and I can do all of that. I believe that I'm trying very hard to be honest and not falsely modest. I thought I could get a job in science, but I thought I'd get a better job in magic.
Yeah, well, it worked.
I just didn't. And then, you know, it was very hard for my mom and dad because my mom and dad, my dad didn't finish high school, and my mom and dad didn't go to college. Yeah. And they believed that everything they didn't get was because they didn't go to college. Yeah. And they saved for me to go to college. And then I did very well on my SATs and got a full scholarship.
And you didn't.
To go wherever I wanted.
And you didn't.
And I didn't go. And that was the hardest thing for my mom. And it wasn't until MIT made me a visiting scholar.
That
My dad kind of went, okay, you can do this.
It's funny, the same thing. Neither of my parents finished high school, and obviously didn't go to college, and of course, in my case, my mother. It was just my case was more obvious. My mother wanted me to be a doctor, and for years, when I got my first, I got a very fancy job at Harvard, and I remember it was the best job in the world. It really was. And I phoned my mom the day I got it, and my then wife was there, and I went out, and my mother phoned her back and said, "He can still go to medical school."
Oh yeah,
yeah, she was. But then then later on, now she's very proud, so it all worked out all right.
Yeah.
It's very hard. It really is
very hard.
But
Did you say physicist, physician? Could you kind of do?
My uncle would say, "Physicist, is that someone who gives someone physics?" They didn't. My mother said, "What do you want to get? Chalk on your hands? What is this?" Anyway, it's an interesting.
I love. You don't know the joy it fills me that you could disappoint your parents with your education. That's fabulous.
Good.
Because we do this. I see myself doing it. I have lots of friends who are very high up in academics that just go, Penn, you could have just gone to college and you'd be able to shut up about college because you still believe stuff we believed at 18. You were never disabused of that. And really, it would take you one semester.
Exactly. But I want to, since I've known you, I mean, I get lots of great questions from you. You were... Why? I mean, what I was going to ask is, so at one point you turned away from science because Kreskin had convinced you it was bullshit because it wasn't different than lying. When did it come back?
That might have also been Randy. I just started because reading Flim Flam, which was Randy's big book about. I realized that if I was going to get into arguments. I'm putting this in a very crass way.
Sure.
I was going to get into arguments about psychic events. I needed to know some statistics.
Okay.
And I didn't know any statistics.
Okay.
I cannot exaggerate how bad my school was. I mean, if you saw what I came out of 10th grade with,
I have
really no algebra.
Yeah.
I mean, none.
No, I have very low expectations. People have. I've taught many students. I have very low expectations.
I mean, no algebra.
Yeah, none.
So now I got to go back and read statistics, and then go, "Oh Christ, okay, regression to the mean." All the stuff you could kind of grasp, but at a certain point, you got to do some of the numbers.
Yeah, you have to do numbers
at some point.
Yeah, you have to.
And so that led to this, and then I would like stuff. Like I would read when I would read it all started with skepticism and all started with atheism. And I'd read, the anthropogenic theory of this, and I go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, they cite this book. Well, I'll read that book, and it just flows out from there. And I get interested in something and read the books. And
I'm amazed. I'm just so impressed because people don't realize. I mean, I'm quite envious, and I'm not sure envious is the word, but really impressed all the time at the level of the number of things you read and the fact that you just follow it up. And then
also,
and when you ask me questions, and I think, and then you want to know further stuff. It pushes me, and I'm always.
And then you find holes that are just phenomenal. I mean, I'm talking about from a proper liberal arts education.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a very smart person with a very good education, like Stephen Fry.
Yeah.
Stephen Fry, when I'm talking to him, and the conversation is flowing all over like it does. And I'll just see, oh, yeah, there's that whole Greek mythology thing that I didn't know enough about. Oh, yeah, there's this. And it's such the ideal of a liberal arts education, which is designed for a gentleman to be able to talk to his friends.
Yeah.
That's all it's designed for.
Yeah.
It was not designed to get a job.
To have good cocktail party conversation and be interesting.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And there was this book, and I know that you don't even want to say these words, but about the time the bell curve came out, there was this idea that what you needed to know to read the New York Times.
Okay.
And there was these whole theories that you had to get the word within a tenth of a second and know what it meant in context. And there was a book that came out that I haven't been able to find since then that just had the minimum you needed to know to read the New York Times. And because of that, and I'm so happy for electronic stuff. Because when I read the New York Times, I try to be so conscientious and click on every word I'm not sure of.
Oh, you see that?
I just go, I'm not exactly sure what that word means. And then people tell me you click on too much of your reading. I get it from context. I said, if you're getting it from context, you're not using the word. Getting the word from context is the stupidest thing in the world. You want to see what that word adds to the goddamn sentence. Right?
Yeah, you want to, no, but you have that, that's what I mean. It's this kind of rigor. Most people don't have the patience to do that.
So I try to say, well, I know a little more about this, know a little more about that. And then I just go, oh, someone mentioned Philip Roth. God damn it. Everybody mentions Philip Roth.
Better read the book.
Everybody's sick of Philip Roth, but I didn't read him. God damn, what do you, okay, American Trilogy, motherfucker, I married a communist. Okay, I'm reading, shut up.
No, but I think there are two kinds of people, and maybe one of the reasons we resonate is I find it, I mean, I love the fact that what I've learned since I got my PhD far exceeds what I've learned before I got my PhD, even in physics, by the way. And I think there are two kinds of people. And maybe this sounds pompous. I don't know. You'll tell me. But there are people who really, when they hear something, when they realize there's something they don't know, are thrilled. And there are people who are, when they realize there's something they don't know, are upset, I think.
Yeah.
And because the thrill, the fact that there's so much more to know about the world is what keeps me going personally every day. In some sense, I kind of think that's the difference between religion and not, in the sense that the thrill of not knowing.
Well, yeah.
And Feynman said that. I'm not afraid of not knowing. And I think that
I don't know if you've ever heard the 10-to-1 monologue they do on fire eating.
No.
But I have this is just bragging.
Okay, good. I just did it too, so it's good.
Feynman, there was the monologue that closed our show on Broadway, closed our show off Broadway, and we did it also before that in L.A. And it was a final monologue I did about how to eat fire. I taught people how to eat fire.
Okay.
And I talked about what the carnival meant to me. And I had a section in there, which I won't do the whole thing, was I said, people often think that scientists don't like the mystery, want to end the mystery. And the fact is scientists are the ones that love the mystery.
Yeah, sure.
The people that don't like the mystery, the people that when there's a mystery there, they just believe the first thing they're told.
Yeah.
Or they make up something and believe that. Or they believe anything they hear on Oprah.
Yeah.
Just anything to shut out the mystery and stop them from thinking. What scientists want is more mystery. It's the opposite. It was a whole monologue.
Yeah, sure.
And it all culminates in teaching how to eat fire. It's all about fire.
I love that. Okay.
And it's the fact of, does it take away the mystery to explain the physics of fire eating? Doing that whole thing. And Feynman saw us accidentally. We were playing a 100-seat theater in Hollywood before anybody knew who we were. And he introduced himself as Richard Feynman and almost passed out. I didn't know how big a deal he was, but the deal I thought he was enough.
Yeah.
And he said, I may cry saying it now. Feynman said, your final monologue is what I've been trying to explain to my wife for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And I never got her to understand it.
Oh.
And he said she understood it tonight with you eating that fire. He said it is the most perfect description of science ever.
Oh.
And then 3 weeks later, Feynman showed up with 8 Nobel Prize winners. He signed up, and he came up afterwards and said, this may be the largest concentration of Nobel Prize winners in a magic show ever.
In a magic show. And none of them can figure out the magic.
Don't fool them. Don't fool them.
Yeah.
But he said that description, that monologue, was what he was trying to say. That it's not closing down mysteries.
Yeah.
And every time you read this anti-atheist stuff of scientists think they have all the answers, you just go, what are you talking about? Religion people think they have all the answers.
Exactly. They have got all the answers.
And you don't even have a path to all the answers.
Yeah, we don't even know what the questions are.
You don't even have a path there. I mean, if you solve every single thing you're working on right now, you can't even measure that you've gotten closer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We don't know what the questions are, and we don't. That's one of the things I've always been amused by. We were talking today about the ridiculous Templeton Foundation. That they love this humble approach. That religion is humble, and it always amazes me to say it's humble to assume the universe was created for me. But in fact, and that scientists are arrogant. But what could be more humble than saying, first of all, it's not created for me. Secondly, I don't have all the answers, and I may never have all the answers.
Well, the most important part to me of the scientific revolution, 300 years ago, whatever, is just 3 words. I don't know.
I don't know.
Because no one had ever said that before. No king had ever said that. No philosopher.
You get your head cut off for that, in fact.
I don't know.
Yeah, or burned at the stake.
I don't know.
I don't know. In fact, you probably heard me say this, maybe, because I've said it so many times, is those are the most important words that teachers and parents should use. I don't know. Hey, let's see if we can figure it out. Because for kids...
Well, Feynman says, I don't know. Maybe nobody knows. Maybe you'll be the first to know.
Exactly. Maybe that's what maybe to the kids, you'll be the first to know. But even more importantly, it was one day I was talking, there's a movie called The Farthest, and it was a premiere of it, and I was talking, and I suddenly realized that for every kid, every time they learn something, it's the first time in the history of the world that it's been understood. Every learning act is an act of discovery. Yeah. And we do such a disservice to kids by making it appear as if it's, remember this is what's known. It should all be an act of discovery. I don't know. Let's figure it out.
And the aha.
It's orgasmic.
Is stronger than sex.
Yeah,
and that's why you have stupid detective shows.
Yeah.
All they are is fake ahas.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. It never really works. Let's just take a little break here so I can tell you about Sleep Number beds. When I go on the road, I stay in really nice hotels. That's part of the rider. And they have nice beds in those hotels, and I'm still happy to get home to my Sleep Number. It's the best bed I've ever had. I love my Sleep Number bed. You probably have considered a Sleep Number bed. Maybe you have, but you thought you couldn't afford one? Well, can you really afford tossing and turning on an old mattress, compromising your sleep? I don't think you can. There's been a better time to save on proven quality sleep. It's the lowest prices of the season right now at your nearest Sleep Number store. I've been sleeping really firm. See, the big thing on Sleep Number, you can adjust the 2 different sides to be different, so you and your partner can have different firmness of your mattress. But I use it off script. I use it to adjust how I feel. And lately, for my back, I've been sleeping with it really, really hard, like 95%. So that solves the whole thing. Come on in for the lowest prices where a Queen Sleep Number 360 C4 smart bed is now only $1,299. That's saving you $400 for a limited time. Go get a Sleep Number bed. You'll find them only at any of the 575 Sleep Number stores nationwide. Find the one nearest you at sleepnumber.com/pen. Sleeping cute. I weigh in with my Withings Wi-Fi smart scale every day to keep my weight in check. And I wear a snazzy Withings activity tracking watch. You're still using a dumb old scale or a blah activity tracker? Now is a great time to upgrade. Keep track of your weight and body composition with a scale that shows you the big picture. Data from every weigh-in syncs to the free app for iOS or Android. All their smart scales can give you a daily local weather report, recognize up to 8 users, and they even wish you a happy birthday. That's the best. I do like that. The scales also include pregnancy tracker and baby mode to weigh the smallest members of your family. And yes, baby mode is awesome for the off-label use of weighing your pets. You want to do that? Go to withings.com, withings.com till September 8th for special Back to Health offers for up to 40% off on Withings activity tracking watches, smart scales, and more. you talked about changing your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I know you've been wanting to get to this because you've been needling me with it for a little while now. You want to get to the climate change thing because you just read a book I wrote several years ago.
Yeah.
Which has an attack at someone who attacked me on climate change.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's no way you can deny that there's climate change. I've completely changed on that. Although completely changed is a little bit confusing because I never went beyond, I don't know.
Yeah.
What bothers me about the climate change thing was the great disservice done by Al Gore of exaggerating.
Yeah, no, it's always...
We have to scare people. We have to do this. And I hate the fact that style affected me, but the kind of people who were talking about it were the kind of people that were so dismissive of people that I loved that I bridled.
You had an emotional reaction.
It was very, very emotional. And also the fact, and this is true for everything, which is why I don't know why it's special, but it feels special. I just don't have, my friend Tim Jennison took a deep dive into climate change. And Tim is really smart. And Tim has the resources to be able to take 6 months and do nothing else.
Okay.
He can do that.
It's a nice job if you can get it.
Yeah. And he said, it's too hard. So I have to admit that I am taking climate change strictly on authority and peer pressure. And saying that sentence bothers me. And yet I do it on everything else.
Yeah, we all do it in everything else. But I think let me try and reassure you a little bit. We can't be experts at everything, right? So we have to take in the car mechanics. But what you can always ask yourself, if you're a skeptic, is say, okay, look, I don't have the time, resources, or background to be able to necessarily test everything this person tell me. But you can ask yourself the question, what's in it for them? And is there a reason for them to lie to me? Is there a reason for them to fabricate? Is there a reason? And I think those are the kind of questions you can ask.
But that question gets the exact wrong answer that you want from me.
Okay, why?
Because there's a lot of reasons. Any sort of doomsaying of any kind is really, really sexy. Discovering the end of the world and how to fix it makes you a superstar and a hero. There's also always money in it.
Well, no, where's the money? I mean, for most of you got look. There's a few people who become public figures, and that's a different thing. But there are thousands of scientists who are just doing this, working on their models on a computer model, and they're not. Whatever the answer at the end of the thing, they're not going to get more money if it's one thing or another. Yeah. In fact, as I've, if their computer model and it's well done shows something dramatically different than the rest of the crew, and they can defend it, then they become famous. And so there's every reason to try and go against the tide in science. And so, you know all this already.
I know.
I don't need to.
But I also think, and I guess this is just, I think it was okay when Al Gore was doing all that lying to go, I don't know, for a few months.
Well, no,
for maybe a year.
It's always right to. I can sympathize with that. I think, of course,
and
I can.
The fact that he did.
Well, the fact that people oversimplify. Well, and the question is, do you know it knowingly? I spent a lot of time trying to explain science, and there are lots of reasons why I think it's worthwhile doing. I have very low standards in terms of what I find acceptable. I mean, the bar when I castigate something is just simply this. When I'm explaining something, I know I'm misleading at some level because I never, unless you do the exact mathematics, whatever analogy I'm providing always fails somewhere.
Well, analogy is never true.
Exactly. But if I'm careful to say where it's not accurate, that's fine. But the one thing that I have no tolerance for, and I know a lot of people, I'm not going to name names, is to knowingly mislead. That's the only thing. If you're writing about science and you get it wrong, fine. Or if someone reads what you've written and gets it wrong, and I remember the first time I wrote a book, my first book, I worked very carefully to try and explain everything. And I have someone say, I love this book. It tells me this. And it had nothing to do with what I was so disheartened. And then I realized, well, I can't control what people get as long as I don't knowingly mislead. And so I think what you have to do when you're simplifying or anything is not knowingly mislead. And then that's the thing I don't know. But that's why I used to be arguing against by string theory so much, is because I think there's every reason for string theorists to want to do string theory. I wrote a book about why it's somewhat well-motivated, but it's claiming that it's the theory of everything, and we're on the cusp of understanding everything when there's no evidence that does any of that is what drove me crazy.
But here's how I got beat up, okay? We did a thing called comic relief for homeless.
Sure,
with Robin Williams, you know what I mean? And there was this whole speech in there that said anyone can become homeless. It's not just if you're mentally ill. It's not just if you're on drugs. It's not just this. This could happen to anybody or your family any day. But I said to Robin, that's not true.
Oh, well.
That's really not true. A great number of the homeless people do have mental illness issues.
Oh, yeah, sure.
A great number.
Yeah.
It's not true that it hits people at random.
No.
And there's no way doing it.
But there's things that can happen to you that you have no control over.
Right. But what I'm talking about is they were saying, well, that helps us have more compassion for people.
Oh, I see.
And I was saying, no. We just tell the truth. These people need help. Let's help them. The exact same thing happened. We started an organization called Broadway Cares, which is for people suffering with AIDS.
Yeah.
And it was in the 80s. It was very early on. And I was in all these meetings, and they would say, we have to stress that this is not gay, this is not drug users, this is everybody, and this is going to be moving into the straight population right away. And I say, well, we don't know that. So far, it is drug users and it is gay, and we can tell people that. And they said, no, we won't get any help from people if we do that. We have to scare everybody with that. And I said, no, we can't. No. And they'd say, and I'm now quoting, so please forgive me, you're not going to get America to care about a bunch of faggots. Okay. And I said, well, maybe they do. Maybe there is a love out there. You can't assume. And they said, we have to say it's going to everybody. So there were all these shows in the 80s saying, it's going to move into the straight population this amount of time. And their point of it was we need to help people. It was done for compassion. And then I was asked to do VO when I was on Comedy Central. And they said, this much rainforest is being destroyed every day, but and there was just a series of numbers I was giving. And the studio wasn't ready, which is their only mistake. And I went through and I did the mathematics, the arithmetic, not mathematics, arithmetic, just did it. And I said, this actually doesn't play out. You just said the number of acres and stuff, and I just multiplied it out. It's just wrong. And they said, doesn't matter. And I said, well, no.
It does.
It kind of does. And they said, well, we got this from it does. I said, well, just let them tell me. Let me call somebody, because I'm not good at this. But there might be something wrong here. And they said, doesn't matter. Just do the VO. And I said, fuck you. And I just left.
Well, no, that's you see, that's your damn problem. You're just too honest.
But so
no, I mean, I have to.
But what I'm saying is,
you are one of the most honest people I've ever met.
But what I'm saying is, Al Gore, please, for the love of Christ, you've got something that could be the end of the world. Don't cheat. Do not cheat. Don't say we need a little more fear. Don't say that by the year, whatever he said, by the year 2015, we're going to have 4 inches of water in Central Park. Whatever that was he said. I'm making it up. I know that's wrong. So don't say, oh, Penn doesn't know either. I know it's wrong. I made it up. But he said these things here. And all of these people, it's like we've been burned so badly. We had the population bomb that was on the 70s. Paul Ehrlich.
I remember, I was really influenced by a book called Limits to Growth when I was young. And I mean, and it was well-intentioned, by the way.
Of course.
But it's just what happens is technology responds to problems, and so you can't predict very well, which is, by the way, why I never try and predict anything less than 2 billion years in the future. First of all, no one will be around to check my math.
But when we're dealing with it, and also anybody who says, we got to fix climate change, I'm against nuclear power, I just go, you're insane.
Yeah.
Because if we got to fix climate change, everything's on the table.
Everything, and most people I know who are, I mean, all the real rational people I know say everything has to be
on the table.
Everything has to be on the table.
Because, we might not get solar or wind. We might not get more than 15 to 20% out of that. We've just got to stop fucking coal.
Yeah.
Stop the fucking coal. Now,
and we talked about the fact that people are afraid of the word nuclear.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing because, first of all, radioactivity is so much easier to detect than almost any other kind of pollution. I mean, it's trivial for me to detect the most minuscule amounts of radioactivity in this room versus any other pollutant. Plus, the number of people that have ever been killed by any nuclear accident in the history compared to the number by coal on every day.
You know how many people 3 Mile Island killed? No. A lot of people, because that was shut down.
Yeah, because it was shut down and then they burned coal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
It's like the people that were killed on 9/11 by more people driving cars and having more car accidents.
Yeah.
But it seems like the solution, if there is one, has got to be technological.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to, because it's so much. Unfortunately, I agree with you completely, because unfortunately, technology is so much easier than changing society. It's just now. I'll tell you, I don't think there's going to be a solution in the near term. There are going to be technological mediation, and I mean, and there may be solutions to taking carbon out of the atmosphere. I've been involved in projects, in fact, that try and do that, and I ran programs that actually
there's
explore
one thing happening over in the Netherlands.
We're already past the point where we're not going to have to adapt.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is think of technological adaptations as well as that. Doesn't, however, the problem, and many of my colleagues say, don't say that, because it suggests to people that we don't have to change.
That's exactly the problem.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I was trying to think of an example where conservation worked. They're few and far between. I mean, we were running out of tin. They were trying to save tin. Everything was about tin. Then aluminum came along. Now there's plenty of tin. That's the way it usually.
Well, the point is technology can be a game changer, and it often is. But having said that, and I guess I was strongly influenced by Amory Lovins, who I've known for a long time, who would point out that in big tall skyscrapers in New York City, most of the energy, so their air conditioning in the summer, most of the problem of the air conditioning is that they're overheating the buildings with the lighting. So you're putting all this energy in to do what you could do if you more efficiently designed the lighting that wouldn't put the energy in the first place. That'd be a lot cheaper than building a nuclear power plant, for example, he used to point out. And so those we have to do those kind of rational things. By the way, interestingly, because I've been involved in some...
things cost what they really cost.
But,
we let gasoline cost what gasoline costs.
Yeah, exactly. And yet people in this country will always be opposed to that. But it's interesting, but because there's also perception. I was involved in an energy conference once, and there was a group in Sweden that had built a house that didn't need heating. This is Sweden in the winter. But they designed passive solar and lighting in such a way that you could live in that house and you'd never need a furnace. No one would buy into this thing because no one believes it's possible. It just seemed irrational. So you've got to overcome that kind of prejudice in so many ways. Once again, it comes back to lying in some sense. Distorting reality is what upset you about climate change. I want to talk about ethics because I think you've talked about ethics a lot in the times I've known you in many different contexts. And something you wrote about sort of surprised me in a way. You're not someone I would call necessarily politically correct, okay?
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, you wrote poignantly about not wanting to offend people. And I found that kind of interesting because in some sense, speaking the truth inevitably offends some people. And so and you said you don't swear in front of your children. I don't know if you still don't.
That's changed.
That's changed?
That's changed. I go through periods, there was a time, Lawrence O'Donnell from MSNBC, Lawrence O'Donnell and Lawrence O'Donnell, of course, has a different image than I do, but Lawrence O'Donnell's from Dorchester.
Okay, I know.
Everybody knows Dorchester. Yeah. And Lawrence O'Donnell and I were once in a taxi cab in New York City. In a taxi cab in New York City.
Okay.
And we were talking, and the subject is very important, we were talking about how to get a picture frame to hang in art straight on the wall.
Okay.
That was the discussion.
Okay.
We drove in the taxi cab, and when we finished, the taxi cab driver in New York City said, I've never heard two people swear more in my life. It was, hello, D, and I go, get the motherfucker level, put the motherfucker level there, the cocksucker, can't get a fucking motherfucking, and we're talking gently about hanging pictures. Right? And I was with another friend of mine who's a record producer named Kramer, who Butthole Surfers and all these other bands. We were all out eating supper. And one of us said, I don't know who, we should just stop swearing.
Oh, okay.
Completely. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, the rules were very simple, okay? We would not ever use euphemisms. Okay. We would say fuck if we meant intercourse. Okay. You know, we would say, we would say cock. Not that kind of swearing. Yeah. But no goddamn, but also no gosh darn.
Okay.
And no golly.
Yeah,
and no, it was Rob Pike. It was also Rob Pike was there too with four of us. We'll all just stop. And we all did. And it was phenomenal because I'd get emails from Rob Pike going, I banged my toe yesterday. And he said, ouch. He said, I hadn't said ouch in so long. And ouch is a fine word.
It's not a bad word.
Ouch. He said, and we did that for about a year and a half. And it was really illuminating and really fun. And then when my children were born, I realized I was saying God damn and Jesus Christ all the time. And I wanted to stop it for the exact opposite reason people might think you want to. I just didn't want my culture that I was giving to my children to be that steeped in Christianity.
In Christianity, okay.
Yeah,
give it the oxygen.
Yeah, so I just wanted to phase that out. And now I go through phases. It depends a lot on who I'm around, what I'm doing. I was really interested in transgressive humor, and I did a movie, The Aristocrats.
Yeah, sure.
And got it out of my system.
Oh, I see.
Really had no interest. Now when someone like pushes the envelope in offensive comedy, I'm just bored. Because I tried to get 100 people to go as far as they could, and they did. And, and I'm not saying others should be bored.
Yeah, but for you. Okay.
I heard enough of it, you know. So I really, you have, you know, there's two kinds of performers that work for me. One is the sociopath who needs nothing from you. Dean Martin being the best example. Bob Dylan being a partial example. Dean Martin, it did not matter when you were in the audience how much you loved him or how much you hated him or booed him. There'd be nothing different from him. And there is something so sexy about that. If you've got someone that you can't touch, that you think that if you insulted them or you kissed them, it would make no difference to them, you just want to hold them and hug them and have them own you forever. I mean, that is one of the sexiest things, I think, especially for men. Especially for men, to men. Okay. It just brings that out very strongly.
I do know. So it's funny. It's very enticing. I know a few people who really amazingly don't care. And I mean, who do what they do because they believe what they do, and they don't really care. And it's not just that they're saying they don't care.
They don't.
And I would like to be that way in certain ways.
And also, you don't you feel an attraction?
Yeah, of course.
You want to please them.
Yeah.
And the other kind of person I want to see perform is someone who desperately, like Don Rickles, who just needs every second, or Jerry Lewis, every second needs that kind of confirmation. I have, which I think is a good formula for the way I work. I have the desire to be loved by everyone, offend nobody, but do it on my terms. And that keeps attention going.
Yeah, no, I can say
I can't actually do the glad handing thing. I try very hard to be complimentary and be polite and give reinforcement, but I try to always mean it. Which is not that hard.
Which is better. No, it's not that hard. And for some people it is, but it's the meaning it makes a lot.
I also know that shock and surprise and out of left field and sexual stuff and this and that. We'll get laughs. It's part of what
It's easy.
comedy is. It's
Yeah.
not just easy. It's
Yeah.
it's like with George Carlin, has a direct answer to that. When
Yeah.
he says people just say using those words are easy. He just says it's just one of the things you can do.
Yeah.
Leave everything out there.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't say in conversation, don't use the word the.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's kind of easy.
Yeah.
Well, no, but it fits right in there. It's the right thing in there. It does the right thing. People used to say to me when I used to do Howard Stern all the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And people would say to me, Howard Stern just doesn't care what people think. And I would go, no.
Yeah.
He cares desperately what people think, but he acts anyway.
Yeah.
And this gets said so much, but you can't say it too much, I don't think. Bravery is not the absence of fear.
Of course.
Bravery is action in the face of fear.
Absolutely.
So, yes, I want desperately to not offend and everybody like me, and I also want to be brave.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's beautifully said. I mean, yeah, it's beautifully said because I think that is the definition. Knowing that you're going to end up doing something that causes offense. But that's why I was surprised to read, in some sense, that you don't want to offend people, because it was actually Stephen Fry who said we have in our society this notion that being offended gives you special rights.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a whole different issue.
You don't have special rights if you're
That's
offended,
a whole
right?
different issue.
You own that problem.
You do not have any right to not be offended.
Yeah.
That does not mean I want to feel cruel when I do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But those are two entirely different issues.
They really are.
And I do very much like to be shocked and offended.
Yeah.
I enjoy those feelings very much.
Yeah.
And I believe that's part of the human experience and part of everything else.
Well, I think it's a character thing. I mean, I'm similar, but I think there are a lot of people who hate either of those.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I like, what was that?
Yeah.
There's a line in a bit we did years ago where Teller and I, it's one of the only bits we've ever done that takes place not in a theater.
Uh-huh.
It takes place in it's a playlet that we do within our show, the short play. And we're not Penn and Teller, we're two different characters. And I discover myself handcuffed to Teller inexplicably. He's a stranger and I'm handcuffed to him. And then the story is about how I deal with being handcuffed to the stranger and how this goes to, and it turns into a magic trick because the handcuffs vanish. Maybe they were never there. But there's one moment where I look at the handcuffs, look at Teller, and I say, this is great. This is terrific. What is this? And I've had like 10 friends say, if I had to sum up all of your life, it would be that one scene. This is great. This is terrific. What is this? They said, the only time we see you excited about something is when you are completely and utterly confused in the dark. Your first reaction to not understanding is a huge grin. Look, this is great. This is terrific. What is this?
That's why, my friend, you would make a great scientist.
Hey, hold on a sec. Let's take a break. Congregationalists, we need your help. USA Today is running a 10 best shows of Las Vegas contest. 10 best of a lot of things, but the only one we're really concerned about is the best show of Las Vegas, and we need you to go and vote for Penn and Teller.
And by we, we're talking about the long-suffering Glenn.
Yes, Glenn really needs you to go vote for Penn and Teller on this. Help Godot and Reddy keep their jobs. Vote for Penn and Teller.
And the best way of doing that is to go to votepenn.com or votepiff.com.
I like the votepiff.com, but I'm going to vote for Penn and Teller.
And you could do that every day until when?
Till September 9th, Joey's birthday. That's my son's birthday. You can vote every day until my son's birthday. Thanks so much. Back to the show.
I want to talk to you about something we've talked about a lot, but I think it's kind of it's an important issue, which is free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Which, of course, it relates a lot, partly to, well, it's an issue that's important to you. It's important to me, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about some of this. I'm really concerned about the issue of free speech lately in a way that I wasn't before, as you know. In our society is the fact that people are afraid. It relates to what we said in some ways, afraid to be offended, afraid that the feeling that they should not have to hear things they don't want to hear.
Yeah. That's the easier one.
Okay. Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
I think that's solved for me, and I have no problem. What we are finding in a sensational type situation is that people can make claims that they have a right to make, and we don't have. I mean, if somebody claimed to have been beaten up by somebody, in a small town, and they went to the police. And the police said, Jesus, there's no bruises on you, you know, and I don't think you were beat up. I think you're a little bit crazy. They could go to the newspaper, and the newspaper would say, when was this? It was 2 days ago, and there's no marks on you. Where did it happen? Well, we'll drive you by. Who did it? This guy? Is this guy here? Yeah. There's nothing on his knuckles, and seems okay to me. And they would scream to the local people, and there would be, there's all these gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And those pathological optimists like me thought that when the internet came and all of this came along, that getting rid of the gatekeepers was going to be fabulous.
Yeah, not just having CBS, NBC, and ABC for the news.
So great. Yeah, so great. But now, it turns out that the police chief and the editor and the neighbors and the grown-ups that were around that just said, shut up, you know, and didn't listen. They were wrong once in a while. But they were wrong once in a while.
Yeah.
And now we've solved that, because now you can go on Twitter or the internet and you can go out completely. And we have not developed the tools yet. I had to do a lot of stuff myself. I decided I'm very bad at remembering where I hear stuff, which is why I have to be very, very careful that I try to give credit for jokes and do all of that. But I also, there was a time way back in the 80s when I was reading a lot of shit for fun, like National Enquirer, and I was reading stuff like that. And I was reading garbagey books. And I realized that, I think it was only once or twice, I caught myself talking in a conversation and referencing something that I'd read in shit that I just taken it. And I went, I got to be really careful. And I was on Facebook for a while, and I was kind of digging it. It was great. And then all of a sudden I went, I'm remembering stuff from Facebook that's not true. So now I have someone who goes through my Twitter and pulls out any real questions people have and any real comments I want to make. But I don't read the stuff as it goes by. Ever anymore.
Interesting.
I'm off Facebook entirely. I get my news from the New York Times. I know there's a lot of other good choices, but the New York Times is a good choice because I disagree with them on everything, and I trust them.
Okay, that's
very good combination.
Yeah, good combination.
Good combination.
Yeah.
I read the New York Times most every day, but I try to be very careful at what I take in, and I think that the whole world is going to find a way to do that.
Well, you know, that's interesting. It does, that resonates with me in a different way. I had the same hope for the internet, and in fact, of course, what the problem is, what has happened is it works. It's orthogonal to the way we teach. We haven't figured a way to prepare people for a world in which what was conventionally knowledge doesn't matter, in the sense that we used to think you'd go to school to learn a bunch of stuff. And then when you learn enough stuff, you could go out and be an adult and work. But the point is, my phone has more stuff, more knowledge in it than I'll ever have, more stuff, but it has more crap. And so what we haven't learned how to do, and the skill and I think that's why it'll be easier for, maybe I hope for your children, or your children's children, is we've got to tailor our teaching to prepare people to be adults. And now what it is to learn how to tell the difference between the crap and the stuff, and to sift. And for me, you see, I have a simple answer. It's the scientific method. I mean, so we got to teach people to be skeptical, to look for multiple sources, because the world they don't have the gatekeepers anymore. And then, sure, you have the New York Times, but I think you still got to be able to, unless you're very careful at closing yourself off from all that other stuff. And I found myself, by the way, doing that too, being caught a few times on Twitter or somewhere else, having bought into a lie. And I feel so bad afterwards. And I realized I didn't do due diligence.
Right. And I also do that with books, by the way. I try to carefully vet books before I read them, because it all goes in.
Yeah.
And it all comes out so quickly. I don't know. It's exactly the same as diet, of course.
Yeah.
We for
Pick and choose.
for millions of years. The problem with every organism was too few calories.
Yeah.
And now, for a very short period of time, for a very small number of organisms, problem is too many calories.
Yeah.
And for
Interesting.
millions of years, the problem was too little information.
Yeah.
We need more information, more information. And now, for a very small group of organisms, there's too much information.
Yeah. And
bats are getting too much information too.
Yeah.
The things bouncing around,
Yeah,
confusing them.
yeah.
A lot of organisms are having too much information.
Yeah.
And how we adjust to that,
It'll be interesting to see.
it's harder than diet, and diet is impossible.
Great. It is. It's harder. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm not optimistic.
Because my daughter, she watches YouTube like anybody, and she gets sucked into these conspiracy things.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, and it gives her more and more. And she goes, I think it's pretty funny that my dad did bullshit, and I believe all these conspiracy things. I said, well, you don't believe. She goes, I don't believe them. I just really enjoy them.
Okay.
And you go, yeah, be careful.
You did it though. You did it yourself, right? National Enquirer, though.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Anyway, it's an interesting, but you're right. That's the hard part of free speech. The fact that we don't want to censor.
And 20 years ago, someone getting information to Lawrence Krauss was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Yeah.
And now getting information to Lawrence Krauss is trivial.
Yeah, it's trivial.
This was a moment that just made my blood run cold. I was, it's probably a year after Twitter started. What's that, 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, at least.
I was on CNN doing an afternoon show. It was live. It was a live show, and it was one of these news shows. I was on, I was on to sell something.
Yeah,
I actually had to pretend to be a pundit during that time. And it was a woman who was, I don't know, she was the big newscaster that noon. And there was a union issue that was happening in Detroit about something. And she'd done that news segment, right? And we talked about it briefly, and then we went to commercial. 3-minute break for commercial. We're sitting in the studio. And she pulls out her phone, and she puts it back in, and she says, did I seem like I was really heavily too in favor of the union and not balanced? I said, I didn't notice. I said, why'd you say that? She said, somebody on Twitter. I said, but who? She said, it was just a person on Twitter who's changing a CNN newscaster's point.
Yeah.
And you just go, whoa, we have no mechanism. I have 2 million followers on Twitter, and there's no part of me that can understand that one of those, and I know many of them are bots, and that's not part of my point. But I have X number, whatever that number is. I cannot process that one of that is just one person saying that. Now, in a theater of 1,400, if one person yells, you suck, I can't process that the others, but when it's on Twitter, it's much worse. I can't see them. I don't know. It comes into my phone in the exact same font that my friends come into my phone. And I don't have any idea how to solve it. And there's all these things written all the time on how to solve it. We have to do diligence. We can't do diligence. It's the same as the question I said before about you can't assume every time. You've got to assume something. And assuming that every person you read is crazy, it's really hard.
But I guess I am often a pathological optimist too in that sense. My assumption is, as has been said about physics, and I've said this a number of times, it was Max Planck who first said it, which is, as far as I know anyway, he said, physics proceeds one funeral at a time, which is, it's impossible. It was impossible for the pre-quantum mechanical physicists to really buy into it. And then you grow up in the era of quantum mechanics, and it's still crazy, but I keep hoping that the generation that grows up with that always having been there will somehow have adjusted to dealing with that.
It's also the thing that makes me crazy. I was on one of the Bill Maher shows, I guess, and there was this whole thing. And there's a thing at my daughter's school where a police officer is going to come in and talk about the dangers of the internet to children, and there's all this, so and so sent a naked picture out of the internet, and now her life is ruined, or his life is ruined. And I was on Bill Maher going, we don't have to teach her this. We can just solve it. We can just solve it by saying we don't care about naked pictures of people, and there's no longer a problem. I said, what is it, or whatever it is now, it's over 25% of people admit to sexting and sending nude pictures now. That's those that admit it.
Admit it, yeah. So
everybody's lying.
Yeah.
So 25% aren't lying.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, which means I haven't run the exact arithmetic on this, but I'm sure someone could. Within 30 years, a Supreme Court justice whose breasts are available on the internet?
Yeah.
40 years? What's that time?
Yeah.
There is a time.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And that becomes nothing.
Well,
and there is a time when someone types into the internet, so-and-so did this, and it means nothing. I don't know how soon that is.
It's amazing to me. You'd think that was the case, that anyone can, that because it's so prevalent, you think it would be nothing. And what's amazing to me is the exact opposite reaction to, naked pictures or whatever. You think by now, I would have thought when in the 1960s, I would have thought by now it would just not be, it would be nothing. And
but then again, marijuana is becoming nothing.
Yeah.
That is happening.
And it changes. And I've said that to people.
And as Neil Gaiman said, tit pics are now how you doing today.
Yeah. No, and that's what's great. I say no matter what the Supreme Court does, whatever what middle-aged white men do in Congress, gay marriage was a done deal because kids my age did big friggin' deal.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't affect them, and so whatever's
government never leads.
Yeah. I know it always follows. It always follows. Okay, now speaking of leading and following, I was reading a nice story. Yeah, a story in one of the books about actually it was totally relevant to the story, but it was a lovely line. It was this time when Teller did this eyeball thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was reading about it, and there's a quote you said, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And I just found this so heartwarming. You said, when people come to our show, should we spend the money on this? When people come to our show, this is what they want us to do. They pay to see our show. This is what they want to do with the money, not buy Cadillacs for our friends. And I love that line.
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of generosity which is really important. I notice it at the end of your shows because you spend all this time signing and doing selfies and stuff. Does that characterize your view of sort of show business? Do you think that is what distinguishes people who really realize the good fortune of what they're doing versus not?
Well, if you talk to Houdini, Howard Stern, Paul McCartney, Madonna, Lady Gaga, they will tell you that they're not as famous as they should be. They really will.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Houdini, they all think.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of ambition to get you there has that,
Yeah.
And Teller and I sincerely believe we're more successful than we planned on being or wanted to be. And there was a moment I was reading Silverman's Biography of Houdini, which is the definitive one. I was reading it in the 80s. And I had always identified with Houdini. And 2/3 of the way through the book, I said, I'm nothing like Houdini. Houdini is Howard Stern. I'm one of the also-rans that was going along doing his stuff. Houdini was willing to do anything to be as famous as possible. That's not even close to what I am. I'm never in that echelon. I'm in a lower echelon, and I kind of like it here. I really like it here. And there's a story I tell about Teller that's in one of my books that always kind of makes me cry, and probably the times I love Teller, probably the time I love Teller the most. There was an act called Alan and Rossi. Hello there. If you remember them from Ed Sullivan.
Yeah, Ed Sullivan, yeah.
Marty Allen just died
yeah.
about a year ago. Marty Allen. Then Rossi had the hit with "More Than the Greatest Love the World," and they were an act. So we were playing at Trump Castle
Oh, okay.
in
There goes that.
I know in Atlantic City, and I got a cold call from Rossi. We were playing the big room. We were the stars.
Oh, okay.
And he said that Alan and Rossi were playing in the lounge, which is a huge step down.
Yeah.
And it was a lounge that did not have walls on it. There's all this stuff in casinos.
Yeah.
If you're in a lounge that's walled in, it's a whole different thing than if it's open. So it's open to all the casino.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's no focus.
Yeah.
And Wood Teller and I like to come see the show. And other people don't, but you know that Teller and I never go out together, very rarely.
Yeah.
We have our social life separate. But I called Teller in his room. It was a cold call to me. I called Teller and said, I want to go to see Alan and Rossi. I want to see them. And he went, give me the Sullivan guys. I went, yeah. They're doing a show here at the lounge. He went, yeah, let's go down. So we went down, and it's what any asshole would call depressing.
Yeah.
12 people in a lounge, drinks clanking, slot machines going. On stage, there was a video showing their appearance on Ed Sullivan to remind people who they were.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Then they came out, and to 12 people half paying attention, they did their routines from Ed Sullivan. And hello there, and did all that. And we watched them and got our club sodas in front of us, and we're drinking those. And I leaned over to Teller and said, this is us in a very few years. And Teller leaned back and said, I am so okay with that.
Oh. I do laugh.
We are doing shows because we love doing shows. And I know so many people who get into show business. I'm going to do stand-up for this many years so I can get a sitcom. I'm going to get a sitcom so I can get a producing credit. I'm going to get a producing credit so I can have a production company. So I can do all this, and that's my career. And that moment of I'm going to do shows just kind of slides by them.
Yeah.
And I've had 3 people say to me, once you've hit the top and you've got a theater named after you and you're sold out, you can't go to playing lesser places. And I go, well, of course you can.
Of course you can.
And you're gonna.
Yeah.
And that's fine. When we were playing fucking carnivals, for 30 people, Teller and I were doing great.
Yeah.
When we're playing carnivals for 30 people at the end, we'll be doing great. The fact that we have a Penn and Teller Theater now in Las Vegas is at best a glitch. The invisible hand will come in and fix that.
It's a good attitude to have. You've got a great attitude for so many things. I love that. And I would say that's one of the reasons I'm happy to be doing this. I have this is a totally different thing, but this is, to me, what is, one of the things I wanted to do and there's lots of reasons I want to do it. And, that's just it.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky.
You have to at some point, it's the other side of the end justifies the means.
Yeah.
There are no ends.
Yeah.
There's only means.
There's only means.
And if the means you're doing are wrong, what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
And there's no end to the journey. There's just the journey. And no matter how many times you say that and how many bad haikus and how many bad greeting cards, doesn't make it less true.
And I'm glad I get to be with you on this journey. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. That was great. Let's eat.
They're going to go eat. Didn't invite us.
That doesn't hardly seem fair, does it?
I got to go find them.
Get in the car. Start the car. That was Penn Sunday School.
That was Penn Sunday School.
Cha, cha, cha.
And to our listening ears,
Wow!
sang and round us rang the music of the spheres. That was Penn Sunday School. That was Penn Sunday School. That was Penn Sunday School.
That's a terrible thing to do.